Welcome back. We begin with Your Vote 2024. We are less than 24 hours until what many are calling one of the most consequential elections of modern American history. Through early voting, tens of millions of Americans have already cast their ballot for the next president of the U.S. Tomorrow, though, is Election Day, the final day to let your voices be heard. What does it take to become elected as president of the U.S.? It's not really a popularity contest, but then again it is. To explain the difference between the popular vote and the Electoral College, where a group of electors determine the outcome, we welcome political science professor Jason Kozlowski from the University of Michigan-Flint. Thanks so much for joining us, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
Well, take us all the way back to 1787 to the Constitutional Convention. That's where I understand James Madison of Virginia introduced the idea of the Electoral College.
It's we have to understand that the framers of the Constitution were very mistrustful of democracy, very, very mistrustful of democracy. So they put in what they thought were filters, and the Electoral College is one of those filters. They said they wanted to refine and enlarge the public opinion. So that's what the Electoral College is all about, basically not trusting the people to make the decisions.
And, you know, there were only 13 states during this convention, and slavery was still very legal at that time. What role did slavery play in the establishment of the Electoral College?
Well, I think slavery certainly had great effects. It, certainly because of slaves are counted as 3/5 in the apportionment system. The southern states had much more power than they would have otherwise. That's why so many presidents came from Virginia at the beginning. And it's just all part of so many people couldn't vote back then. Women, people who didn't have property, slaves. So it's really, once again, it's just, I think we have to understand just that the framers, James Madison, they just really didn't trust the people, and they wanted to establish what they called a republic and not a democracy. And the Electoral College is kind of one of the things that are left over from that mistrust.
And why, Professor, would you say, or how is it possible, let's say in the case of Hillary Clinton, to overwhelmingly win the popular vote back in 2016, but ultimately lose the Electoral College? How does that work?
Well, what you have to do is you have to win big in a few big states and win by a little bit in a lot of little states. So basically, if, for example, California, New York, Illinois, a lot of big states, they usually go to the Democrats, right? And if you win big in those states, basically every vote above 50% doesn't count, because you get basically you get the most. If you get the most votes, then you win. But if you win by a little bit in a lot of smaller states, then that's how the malapportionment works itself out.
So it's a popularity contest, but it's not, but it is.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
How are electors chosen, and what is their primary function?
Well, I mean, electors are mostly party bigwigs. It's mostly a ceremonial role now. Basically, ever since electors had to pledge who they were going to vote for, they haven't had much to do. I mean, that wasn't always the case. At the beginning of the country, you would just vote for electors and you had no idea who they were going to vote for. Now, most states require electors to vote for the people who they're pledged for. 38 states have these faithless elector laws. Some states don't, but it happens very, very rarely. So for the most part, what electors do is they just go to the Electoral College actually convenes, and they just cast votes for the people who they said they were going to vote for. And you see when you vote, there's the name of the candidate, but then there's these little names afterwards. Those are the electors.
And lastly, Professor, why is 270 the magic number?
Well, it's just a majority. Basically, the electors are the number of representatives plus the number of senators, right? So it's just, that's the way the math works itself out. So that's it.
Political science professor Jason Kozlowski from the University of Michigan-Flint. You've been very enlightening this afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing that information with us and our viewers. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.